Good morning students, we are starting a new chapter called as the living organisms, characteristics and habitats. First we will read the textbook and then we will try and explain. Pahili and Bujo went on a vacation to many places of interest. One such trip took them to river Ganga in Rishikesh. They climbed the mountains of the Himalayas where it was cold. They saw many kinds of trees on these mountains, oaks, pines and deodars, very different from the ones near their homes on the plains. In yet another trip, they traveled to Rajasthan and moved on camels through the hot desert. They collected different kinds of cactus plants from this trip. Finally, they went on a trip to Puri and visited the sea beach, dotted with casuarina trees. While recollecting that they had these trips, a thought struck them. All these places were so different that from one another. Some were cold, some were very hot and dry, some were so humid, and yet all of them had organisms of various kinds. They tried to think of a place on the earth where there may not be any living creatures. Bujo thought of places near his home. Inside the house he tried cupboards. He had thought that there may not be any living organisms here, but he found one tiny spider in the cupboard. Outside the home too, there did not seem to be any place he could not think that did not have living creatures of some kind or the other. Paheli started thinking and reading about faraway places. She read that people have even found tiny living organisms in the opening of volcanoes also. So we read this, we will try and Paheli and Bujo went to a trip and they got a thought about to find a place where there are no living creatures. They could not find, because in every place some or the other living organisms will be there. Another thought that occurred to Paheli and Bujo was about kinds of living organisms that were present in different locations that they had visited. The desert had camels, the mountains and the goats and the yak. Puri had some other creatures, crabs on the beach, and such a variety of fish being thought by the fishermen to the sea land. Then there seemed to be some creatures like ants that were present in all these different locations. The kinds of plants found in each of these regions were so different from the plants of the other regions. Another thought that occurred to Paheli and Bujo was about the kinds of the living organisms. Kinds of the living organisms that were present in different locations they had visited. The desert had camels, the mountains had goats and yak. Puri had some other creatures, crabs on the beach. Such a variety of fish being caught by the fishermen at the sea. And there did seem to be some creatures like ants that were present in all these locations. The kind of plants found in each of the regions were so different from the plants of the other regions. What about the surroundings? In regions, were they the same? Keeping their bodies away from the heat of the sand. From the heat of they excrete small amount of urine. We will discuss habitat. Habitat means habitat ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನೋ ಲಿವಿಂಗ್ ಪ್ಲೇಸ್. ಒಂದು ಆರ್ಗನಿಸಮ್ ಎಲ್ಲಿರುತ್ತೋ ಆ ಲಿವಿಂಗ್ ಪ್ಲೇಸ್ನ ನಾವು ಹ್ಯಾಬಿಟ್ಯಾಟ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಗೊತ್ತಾಯ್ತಾ? ಅಡ್ಯಾಪ್ಟೇಷನ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಏನು? ಇರೋ ಹ್ಯಾಬಿಟ್ಯಾಟ್ಗೆ ಹೆಂಗೆ ಅಡ್ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಅಡ್ಯಾಪ್ಟೇಷನ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ ನಾವು. So we'll see. First, in the sea, plants and animals are surrounded by salty water. Most of them use the air dissolved in water. There is little water available in the desert. It is very hot in the daytime and very cold in the night in the desert. The animals and the plants of the desert live on the desert soil and breathe air from the surroundings. And sea and desert are very different surroundings. And we find very different kinds of plants and animals in these two regions. Isn't it? Let us look at the two different kind of organisms from desert and sea. A camel and a fish. The body structure of camel helps it to survive in desert conditions. Camels have long legs to to keep their bodies away from heat of the sand. They excrete small amount of urine, their dung is dry and they do not sweat. Since camel lose very little water from their bodies, they can live many days without water. This is the adaptation. ಹಿಂಗೆ ನೋಡಿ ಕ್ಯಾಮಲಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ಥರ ಅಡ್ಜಸ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಇದೆ ಡೆಸರ್ಟಲ್ಲಿ ಇರೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಅಂತ. ಲಾಂಗ್ ಲೆಗ್ಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಅದರಿಂದ ಬಾಡಿ ಹೀಟ್ ಬೇಗ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಮತ್ತು ಲಿಟಲ್ ಯೂರಿನ್ ಕಮ್ಮಿ ಪಾಸ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, ಡಂಗ್ ಡ್ರೈ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಸ್ವೆಟ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಅದು ವಾಟ್ರನ್ನು ಎಷ್ಟೇ ಕಮ್ಮಿ ವಾಟ್ರ್ ಇದ್ದರೂ ಸರ್ವೈವ್ ಆಗೋಗೋದು. ಫಿಶ್, there are so many kinds of fish, but you see they have something in common. All the ones have streamlined shape. Streamlined shape means ಫ್ರಂಟ್ ಶಾರ್ಪ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಫಿಶಲ್ಲಿ, ಯಾಕಂದರೆ ಈಸಿಯಾಗಿ ವಾಟರ್ನ ಕಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಮೂವ್ ಆಗ್ಬೋದು. ದಿಸ್ ಶೇಪ್ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ಸ್ ದೆಮ್ ಟು ಮೂವ್ ಇನ್ಸೈಡ್ ದ ವಾಟರ್. ಫಿಶಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಸ್ಲಿಪ್ಪರಿ ಸ್ಕೇಲ್ಸ್ ಆನ್ ದ ಬಾಡಿ. Fishes have scales on the body. These scales protect the fish and also help in easy movement through water. Fishes have flat fins and help in easy movement through water. Fishes have flat fins and tails that help them to change direction and keep their body balanced in water. Gills present in the fish help them to use dissolved oxygen in water. We see that the features of a fish help them to live inside the water, and feature of a camel help them to survive in a desert. We have taken only 2 examples from a wide variety of animals and plants that live on the earth. In all this variety of organisms, we will find that they have certain features that help them live in the surroundings in which they are normally found. The presence of specific features or certain habits which enable an organism to live naturally in a place is called adaptation. The presence of specific features or certain habits which enable an organism to live naturally in a place is called adaptation. Adaptation of organisms differ depending on their place of dwelling. That is why a fish cannot live out of water and a camel cannot live in a sea. The place where organisms live is called habitat. Habitat means a dwelling place or a home. The habitat provides food, water, air, shelter and other needs to organisms. Several kinds of the plants and animals that live on the land are said to live in terrestrial habitats. Some examples of terrestrial habitats are forest, grassland, desert, coastal and mountain regions. Habitats and living place. Forest live ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, grasslands, desert, coastal and mountain regions. On the other hand, habitats of plants, animals that live in water are called aquatic habitats. Lakes, rivers and oceans are examples of aquatic habitats. There are large variations among terrestrial habitats like forests, grasslands, desert. The organisms, both plants and animals, live in a habitat are called biotic components. The non-living things such as rock, soil, air, water in the habitat are constitute abiotic component. So, living things na biotic anta karitivi, non-living things na abiotic components anta karitivi. Living yaudu plants and animals, non-living yaudu rock, soil, air, water, climate, rainfall. We will see the impact of abiotic factors and seeds. When seed turns to sprout, it is said to have germinated. This is the beginning of life of a plant. Beginning of life of a plant. We find that divide soaked seeds into 4 parts. Keep 1 part submerged in water for 3 to 4 days. Do not disturb the dry seeds and those submerged in the water. Keep 1 part of the soaked seeds in sunny room and another in complete dark region in a cupboard. Keep the last part in very cold surroundings, say in a refrigerator with ice around them. Rinse them and replace water every day. Do the seeds germinate in all the 5 conditions germinate uniformly? Find slow or no germination in any of this. You realize that abiotic factors like air, water, light and heat are important for the growth of the plants, In fact, abiotic factors are important for all living organisms. We find that organisms exist in very cold as well as hot climates, isn't it? How do they manage to survive? Adaptation is the method by which organisms get well adjusted to the climate. Adaptation does not take place in a short time because of abiotic factors. Region change very slowly. Those organisms which cannot adapt to these changes die. Only the adapted ones survive. Organisms adapt to different abiotic factors in different ways. This results in a wide variety of organisms in different habitats. Adaptation is where the organisms make changes to suit to the environment. Which cannot adapt changes die, only the adapted ones survive. Organisms adapt to different abiotic factors. This results in a wide variety of organisms in different habitats. In different habitat. First, terrestrial habitats. We'll discuss about some habitats on land. Number one, desert. We discussed the abiotic factors of a desert and adaptation in camels. What about other animals and plants that are found in desert? Do you think they have same kinds of adaptation? There are desert animals like rats and snakes which do not have long legs that a camel has. To stay away from the intense heat during the day, they stay in burrows deep in the sand. These animals only come out during the night when it is cooler. The first adaptation in desert is animals like rats and snakes which do not have long legs that a camel has. They live inside the sand, make burrows deep inside the sands. They come out only during the night when it is cooler. Desert plants lose very little water through transpiration. The leaves in the desert plants are either absent, very small, or they are in the form of spines. This helps in reducing loss of water from the leaves through transpiration. The leaf-like structure you see in a cactus is in fact its stem. The photosynthesis in these plants is usually carried out by the stem. The stem is also covered by a thick waxy layer which helps them to retain water in the tissues of cactus. So cactus has needle-like leaves which helps them to lose less water. They won't open stomata during the day, and the stem is covered by a thick waxy layer which helps them to retain water in the tissue of cacti. Most desert plants have roots that go very deep into the soil for absorbing water. Desert plants lose very little water through transpiration. The leaves in desert plants are either absent, very small, or they are in the form of spines. This helps them in reducing loss of water from the leaves through transpiration. The leaf-like structure you see in cactus is in fact its stem. Photosynthesis is usually carried out by the stems. Next, mountain regions. These habitats are normally very cold and windy. Mountain is very cold and windy because they will be very high above the ground. From the earth or from the ground they will be very high. The air pressure will be pretty less. So that's why they will be very cold. Mountain regions are normally cold and windy In some areas, snowfall may take place in winters. There is a large variety of plants and animals living in the mountain regions. We've seen the kinds of trees shown in the figure. Trees of a mountain hybrid. If you live in a mountain region, if you have visited one, you may see a large number of such trees. But have you noticed such trees naturally, have you seen that trees naturally growing in other regions? However, these trees are adapted to the conditions prevailing in the habitat. These trees are normally cone-shaped and have sloping branches. The leaves of some of these trees are needle-like. This helps the rainwater and the snow to slide off easily. There could be trees with shapes very different from these and also present on the mountains. They may have different kinds of adaptations to survive on the mountain. Animals living in the mountain areas are also adapted to the condition. They have thick skin or fur to protect from the cold. For example, yaks have long hair to keep them warm. Snow leopard has thick fur including feet and toes. This protects its feet from cold when it walks on a snow. Mountain goat has strong hooves for running up rocky slopes of the mountain. As we go up in the mountain, surroundings change and we see different kinds of adaptation.